Coming up on today's episode of the She Thinks She's Cute podcast, we are starting a new series called The Cost of the Shortcut. This first conversation is going to meet some of you in a very real place because we are talking about delay, not just waiting, not just being patient, but that place where the wait starts making you question your standards, that place where you start wondering, was I asking for too much? Did I hear God wrong? Should I just accept what is available? Maybe this is good enough. And the line we are sitting with today is this. The delay may be uncomfortable, but settling can become expensive. That is where we are going today. Stay with us.
Welcome to the She Thinks She's Cute podcast, a storytelling platform exploring perception, identity, and the moments that quietly shape who we become. A space for thought-provoking stories and conversations. Created and hosted by Denise Williams. This work began on the stage, but it developed into a broader storytelling platform. A space for honesty, for perspective, and for the conversations we may not usually say out loud. Here, we don't shrink to fit. We don't dim to survive the room. We show up, aware, expanding, and becoming. This is She Thinks She's Cute. Original stories, intentional impact. Let's begin.
Welcome to the She Thinks She's Cute podcast, a space for thought-provoking stories, honest reflection, and intentional conversation. I am Tonya, and I am here with the creator and host of the She Thinks She's Cute podcast, Denise Williams. Today, we are beginning a brand new podcast series called The Cost of the Shortcut. Week 1 is titled, The Delay is Not Permission to Settle. This episode confronts the temptation to lower the standard because the promise, the opportunity, the relationship, the assignment, or the breakthrough is taking longer than expected. Denise, this one feels like it is going to challenge some of us.
Hello, Tonya. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. The delay is not permission to settle. And Tonya, I agree with you. I do believe this episode will challenge us and some of us in a very personal way. I think it's going to be challenging because settling does not always look reckless. Sometimes it can look reasonable. It can look mature. And sometimes it looks like I am tired. Many of us may be able to relate to that. And sometimes it looks like maybe I need to be more realistic. And that is what makes it dangerous because when some people hear the word settle, they may think about someone making an obvious bad decision. But a lot of settling does not start with a bad decision. It starts with emotional fatigue. It starts with you having waited longer than you expected, prayed longer than you wanted to, longer than you thought you would have to, believe longer than you feel you had the strength for. And when you may have watched other people move ahead, watch other people get chosen, watch other people celebrate what you are still waiting on, and then something in you starts negotiating. Not because you're no longer believing, but because the wait has made belief expensive. So this episode is really asking, what are you tempted to accept simply because you are tired of waiting?
That is such an honest question. And I think it matters that you name fatigue because some of us may feel guilty for even admitting they are tired.
Yes, Tanya, that is true. And I want to say this clearly. Being tired does not make you wrong. It does not make you lack faith. It does not mean you are ungrateful. What it means is that you are human. But I also want to share that tiredness is not always a trustworthy decision maker. When you're tired, relief can start looking like wisdom. Escape can start looking like peace. Availability can start looking like provision. And good enough can start sounding like discernment. That is why we have to slow down and ask, am I choosing this because it is right or am I choosing this because I want the waiting to stop?
That question is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Am I choosing this because it is right or because I want the waiting to stop? You said something when we were preparing for this conversation. You said delay does not just test patience, it can expose desperation. What did you mean by that?
I mean, delay reveals what has more authority in us than we realize. It is easy to say, I trust God when everything is moving quickly. It is easy to say, I have standards when options are plenty. It is easy to say, I know what I'm called to when confirmation is visible. But delay has a way of revealing the places where we are still afraid. Places like, I'm afraid I will be forgotten, afraid that I waited for nothing, afraid the opportunity that I waited so long for will not come back around, afraid of running out of time, afraid someone else will get what is supposed to be ours, afraid that we do not take what is, if we do not take what is available now, that nothing better will come, afraid that fear, and that fear can be loud. So when I say delay exposes desperation, I'm saying that I'm not saying that to shame people. I'm saying it because it gives us language. Sometimes the real issue is not that the standard was too high. Sometimes the real issue is that fear got louder than conviction.
Denise, that is strong, and it makes me think about how quietly we can begin to lower the standard. It usually does not happen all at once.
Exactly. Settling often happens in small edits. You do not always wake up and say, I'm going to abandon everything I believed. Sometimes you just start editing the truth. You say, well, maybe character is not that important. Maybe consistency is too much to ask for. Maybe I can work around the red flags, or I do not need the full vision. Maybe I should just be grateful they offered me something. Maybe peace is unrealistic. I'm asking too much. Maybe obedience is costing too much. And before you know it, you have talked yourself into something your wiser self would have questioned immediately. That is why the title of this episode matters. The delay is not permission to settle. Delay may require you to have more patience. It may require more maturity. It may require discipline. Delay may require surrender. But delay does not give us permission to abandon wisdom.
Let's stay with that phrase, editing the truth, because I think some people may not realize they're settling. They may think they're adjusting. How can someone tell the difference between wisdom and settling?
She Thinks She's Cute stage production is now available for booking. Looking for a powerful stage experience for your women's conference, church event, university, corporate gathering, community event, or performing arts venue? She Thinks She's Cute is a compelling live production that sparks conversation, challenges assumptions, and reminds audiences of the power of empathy, healing, and unity among women. Bring this unforgettable production to your stage. Visit shethinksshecute.com and click the booking button for more details. She Thinks She's Cute stage production. Assumption is not always truth.
That is such an important question, Tonya, because adjustment can be healthy, growth can require flexibility, and wisdom, it may require us to release unrealistic expectations, pride, control, and rigid timelines. So we're not saying that every shift is settling, but settling usually has some signs. One sign that you have to keep talking yourself into peace. When something is wise, there may still be nerves. You may be a little nervous. There may still be unknowns, but underneath it, there is a steadiness. When something is settling, you often have to keep convincing yourself. You keep explaining away what your spirit keeps noticing. Another sign that you may start minimizing what used to matter. You once cared about integrity, but now you are accepting confusion. You once cared about mutual respect, but now you're tolerating crumbs. You once cared about purpose, but now you are choosing convenience. And this can apply to relationships, business, ministry, friendships, career opportunities, creative partnerships, leadership roles, and also your personal decisions. Settling can happen anywhere there is pressure, delay, and desire.
That is an important distinction because we may hear settling and think only about relationships.
That is true, Tonya. But people settle in assignments too. We settle for platforms that require us to shrink our message, settle for rooms that tolerate us but do not honor our assignment, settle for partnerships that drain our clarity, settle for opportunities that look impressive but pull us away from what God actually told us to build. Sometimes the shortcut is not obviously the bad thing. Sometimes the shortcut is a good looking distraction that comes while you are tired of waiting for the right thing. That is why discernment matters. Not every open door is your door. Not every offer is provision. Not every delay means you should change direction. And not every opportunity deserves your yes.
Denise, let's talk about the emotional side of this. Sometimes when the wait is long, people can start interpreting the delay as punishment. They may not say it out loud, but inside they're thinking, why is this taking so long? What do you say to the person who feels that way?
Tonya, first I would say I understand your feeling. When you have been faithful, when you have shown up, when you have done the work, you've prayed, you planned, you prepared, you sacrificed, you forgiven, you served, you created, and still do not see the full manifestation, it can hurt. And sometimes people try to rush past that hurt with spiritual language. They say, just trust God. And yes, of course, we need to trust God, but sometimes we need to be honest enough to say, Lord, I do trust you, but this hurts. There's nothing wrong with telling God the truth. The danger is when pain starts preaching to you and pain starts telling you you waited too long, you are behind, you missed it. You should take whatever comes. You cannot afford to have standards anymore. You better make something happen. So I would tell that person, do not let the ache of delay become the authority over your decisions. Feel it, name it, pray through it, get support if and when you need it, rest if you need it, but do not hand your future to the most exhausted version of yourself.
That line right there, do not hand your future to the most exhausted version of yourself. That is a whole moment.
It is, Tonya, because we do it. Sometimes we make permanent decisions from temporary exhaustion. And then later, when we have rested, when our mind is clearer, when our confidence is healthier, we look back and think, why did I agree to do that? Why did I ignore that? Or why did I make that choice? And often the answer is because you were tired. And that is why we have to be careful. The delay may be uncomfortable, but settling can be expensive.
Let's talk about that cost. The line for this episode is the delay may be uncomfortable, but settling can become expensive. What can settling cost?
Settling can cost more than we may think. It can cost peace because now you are managing something you were never supposed to carry. It can cost your clarity because compromise has a way of making the next right step harder to see. It can cost your confidence because deep down, you know when you have betrayed what you knew. It can cost your time because sometimes the shortcut creates a longer recovery season than the original way would have required. It can cost your assignment because some decisions do not just affect your comfort, they affect your capacity to carry what you are called to build. And it's important to understand that God is not trying to keep good things from you, but because He sees what we can't see, He sees the hidden cost. He sees the weight attached to that option that you are considering. He sees the character behind the opportunity. He sees the pattern beneath the promise. He sees what will drain you, what will distract you, and delay you further. So when God says wait, it's not always withholding. Sometimes it is protection, and sometimes it is preparation.
That reframes waiting in a powerful way. Waiting is not always God saying no. Sometimes waiting is God keeping you from a yes that would cost too much.
Exactly. And this is where maturity comes in, Tonya. Immaturity says, if I want it and it is available, it must be mine. Maturity says, I need to know whether this is right for me or just available to me. That is a different level of decision making because availability can be seductive when you are tired. Somebody finally notices me, offers me something. Someone finally opens a door, gives you attention. Someone finally says what you wanted to hear. But the question is not just this available? The question is this assigned? Is this wise? Is this clean? Is it consistent to what God has been building in me?
That makes me think about relief because sometimes when people finally get an option after a long delay, they feel relieved and they may mistake that relief for peace. How do you separate relief from peace?
Great question, Tonya. Relief often says at least something happened. Peace says this is right. Relief is usually connected to the pressure ending. Peace is connected to a deeper witness. Relief can come when the loneliness stops, the bills are paid, the door opens, the apology comes, the invitation comes, when someone finally chooses you. But peace asks a deeper question. What comes with this? What will this require of me? What am I ignoring because I'm happy to be chosen? What is the pattern? What is the fruit? What is my spirit saying when the excitement gets quiet? Relief is not evil. I'm not saying that, but because we all need relief sometimes, but relief should not be the only evidence that a decision is wise.
So, Denise, the question is not just, do I feel better? The question is this right?
Yes, because some things feel better at first because they ended the discomfort. But ending discomfort is not the same as choosing wisdom. There are some decisions that give immediate relief but create long-term heaviness. And there are some decisions that require temporary discomfort but preserve long-term peace. And that is why the shortcut can be so costly. It promises to end the waiting, but it may create a weight you were never carry, you were not built to carry.
That's good, Denise. Let's talk about standards because sometimes people feel guilty for having standards, especially when they have been waiting a long time. What would you say to the person who is starting to believe their standard is the problem?
Tanya, I would tell them to examine the standard, but do not immediately accuse it. Some standards are rooted in pride, fear, image, control, or perfectionism, and those need to be surrendered. But some standards are rooted in wisdom, in healing, confidence, self respect, and purpose. Those need to be protected. This is why you need discernment. You have to ask, is this standard about appearance or assignment? Is this standard about control or character? About ego or wisdom? Fear or obedience? Because there is a difference between being picky and being discerning. Being picky can be about performance. Being discerning is about fruit. Being picky says it has to look exactly like I imagine, but discerning says it has to be healthy, wise, honest, and consistent with where God is taking me. So, no, the standard is not automatically the enemy. Sometimes the standard is the guardrail that keeps you from calling a shortcut a blessing.
That is a strong distinction. Sometimes the standard is the guardrail.
Absolutely. And we cannot let the delay shame us out of discernment. Just because you have waited does not mean you should accept confusion. And because you're tired does not mean you should tolerate disrespect. Just because the opportunity is impressive does not mean you should ignore the cost. And just because people say at least you got something does not mean that something is God's best for your life. Sometimes something is still too expensive.
Let's talk about outside pressure because sometimes the delay is hard enough, but then people add their opinions. They say things like, no, you are being too particular. You need to hurry up. Everybody has to compromise. This is just how it is. At least you have an opportunity. At least somebody wants you. At least the door opened. How should someone handle that kind of pressure? Well,
That can be difficult. They have to remember that other people do not have to live with the full cost of their yes. That is very important. People can advise us and then go home. They can pressure you and then disconnect from the consequences. They can tell you what they would do, but they may not have your assignment, your conviction, your history, your discernment, or responsibility. So you cannot let people who are not accountable for your peace become the loudest voice in your decision making. And that does not mean you reject counsel. Wise counsel matters. Trusted voices matter. And community matters. But pressure is not the same as counsel. Counsel helps you to see clearly. Pressure rushes you. Counsel asks wise questions. Pressure pushes an agenda. Counsel respects your process. Pressure shames your process. Counsel considers the cost. Pressure only sees the convenience. So if someone is pushing you to settle, ask yourself, are they helping me discern, or are they just uncomfortable with my waiting?
that is practical, Denise, because sometimes people are uncomfortable watching you wait.
Your waiting can make some people anxious, especially if they measure progress by visible movement only. But everything growing is not always visible. The growth is not always seen. A seed spends time underground. A foundation takes time before the building rises. A person can develop capacity in a season that looks quiet from the outside. So you can not always let outside observers define what is happening for you internally. Sometimes God is doing something in the delay that people cannot validate because they cannot see it yet.
That brings us to something important. If delay is not permission to settle, then what could be happening in the delay? What is the wait developing?
Great question. What can be happening in the delay, and what is the wait developing? Delay can be developing you, and not just patience. It can be developing discernment, because sometimes you need to see what is real and what is performative. It can be developing discipline, because you learn how to keep showing up without immediate applause. It can be developing emotional sobriety, because you learn not to be ruled by panic, comparison, or urgency. It can be developing spiritual maturity, because you learn to trust God when the timeline does not flatter your preferences. It can be developing capacity, because some things we pray for require a version of us that can carry them well. Now, I want to be clear, not every delay is God ordained. Sometimes delay comes from fear, from procrastination. It can come from disobedience, poor planning, avoidance, or lack of action. And we need to be honest about that too. Waiting is not an excuse for laziness, for avoiding responsibility, refusing to prepare, or calling fear wisdom. There is a difference between waiting well and doing nothing. Waiting well still prepares. Waiting well still heals, it studies, creates, tells the truth, still obeys, and still makes wise move. So when I say delay is not permission to settle, I'm not saying sit back and do nothing. What I'm saying is, do not let impatience make you choose beneath wisdom. Keep preparing, keep growing, keep moving with discipline, keep doing your part, but do not abandon the standard just because the timeline is uncomfortable.
That's good, Denise. Let's talk about the moment of temptation, because there's usually a moment where settling becomes attractive. What does that moment sound like?
Great question, Tonya. It sounds like compromise dressed as practicality. It sounds like maybe this is the best I can do, or I should stop expecting too much. I just need to take it, or this is my only chance. God is telling me to be humble. Maybe I can fix it later, or maybe I should just be thankful and stop questioning. Maybe the red flags are not that serious. And I want to be careful here. Gratitude is important. Humility and flexibility are also important, but gratitude should not make you ignore dysfunction. Humility should not require self-abandonment, and flexibility should not become disobedience. And being thankful should not silence discernment. Sometimes we can use spiritual language to justify choices we already know are not wise. That is why we have to be honest with ourselves. Not dramatic, not fearful, but honest. Ask, am I trying to obey God, or am I trying to end discomfort? Am I being wise, or am I being weary? Am I choosing peace, or am I choosing relief? Am I adjusting, or am I abandoning? Am I moving in faith, or am I moving in fear? Those questions can save you from an expensive shortcut.
That is the kind of pause some people need, because so many decisions are made quickly in emotional moments.
Yes, Tonya, and urgency is not always true. Sometimes urgency is a sign that fear is trying to force your hand. When you feel rushed, I encourage you to pause. Not every decision can wait forever, but most wise decisions need enough space for honesty. pause can protect you. It can help you hear God clearly. It can help you notice what excitement made you overlook and help you to separate pressure from wisdom. It can help you to remember what you said mattered before you became tired.
Denise, let's make this practical. What should the listener do if they are tired of waiting and tempted to settle?
Great question, Tonya. I would suggest first tell the truth. Do not pretend you're not tired. Don't dress it up. Don't shame yourself. Just tell the truth. Just simply say, I'm tired of waiting. I feel disappointed. I feel overlooked. I am tempted to take something beneath what I know is wise. And God, I need you to strengthen me because I do not want to make a decision from exhaustion. Being truthful is powerful because what stays hidden often gains power. Second, revisit what God already showed you. When you're tired, you may need to go back to the instruction, back to the conviction, the standard, the reason, the wisdom, the lesson. What did you already know before delay made you question it? And thirdly, count the cost. Not just the cost of waiting, the cost of settling. We can be quick to count what waiting is costing us, but we also need to count what compromise would cost us too. Fourth, get around wise voices, not people who will just hype you up, not people who will push fear, not people who will shame your process. Get around people who can ask, is this wise? Is this healthy? Is this consistent with what you are building? Is this consistent with what God told you? Are you choosing faith over fatigue or fatigue? And fifth, do not do the next responsible thing. Sometimes some people become so focused on what has happened that they stop stewarding what is in their hands. Do the next right thing. Make the call. Finish the draft. Take the class. Update the plan. Have that conversation. Rest. Pray. Prepare. Clean up what needs to be cleaned up. Strengthen what needs to be strengthened. Do not settle, but do not become passive either. This is what I encourage any listener that feel that they're tired and waiting and tempted to settle. This is what I would say to you.
So good, Denise. That brings us to the action for this episode. And I want you to give it to us clearly because I think this is one people needs to sit with. What is the action for week 1?
The suggested action for this episode is to identify one place where delay is tempting you to lower a standard, then write down what settling would actually cost you. Not just what settling would give you in the moment, because settling may give you temporary release. It may give you attention, movement, a title, access, a quick answer, or something to show people. But what would it cost? Would it cost your peace, your clarity, your confidence, your obedience, your energy, your ability to show up fully for what really matters? Will it pull you away from that thing God actually told you to build? And write it down, because sometimes when the cost is only emotional, we can minimize it. But when we put it in front of us, we start seeing the truth. Then ask one more question. What is the next wise thing I can do without lowering the standard? That question matters because the goal is not to sit still in frustration. The goal is to move with wisdom. Maybe the next wise thing is preparation. It could be prayer, a conversation, accountability, updating a plan, simply saying no, waiting before making a decision, admitting that you were about to choose from fatigue. Whatever it is, do the next wise thing. And I know I just shared a lot, but this information will be included in our reflection guide that you're able to download.
So the action is identify the place, count the cost, choose the next wise step.
Yes, Tonya. Sometimes the thing that protects us from settling is not a huge dramatic moment. Sometimes it is that one honest pause, one moment where you say, I know I'm tired, but I'm not going to portray wisdom to feel better for a moment. That is strength, maturity, and faith in motion.
Denise, before we close, I want to bring this back to faith. What do you want listeners to remember spiritually when delay is making them weary?
When delay tries to make you weary, I want you to remember that God is not careless with time. Now, I know that can be hard to hear when you are the one waiting, but I want you to know, trust, and understand that God is not intimidated by delay. He is not confused by the timeline. He is not late because he forgot. He is not silent because he is absent. And sometimes what we call delay is actual development. Sometimes God is strengthening discernment because of where you are going. You cannot afford to be easily impressed. Sometimes he is healing your identity because where you are going, applause cannot be your anchor. And sometimes he's deepening your obedience because where you are going, pressure will try to negotiate with your yes. Sometimes he is teaching you how to hold the standard without becoming bitter, prideful, or fearful. That is why you cannot let the wait turn your heart against God. You can be honest with him. You can bring him your frustration. You can tell him you're tired. You can ask him for strength. But please do not assume his timing is punishment just because it is uncomfortable. And do not let disappointment make you choose something that he never told you to carry.
Denise, this was such a strong start to the series. The cost of the shortcut is already asking a real question. What are we tempted to choose when we are tired of waiting? And today's reminder is clear. The delay may be uncomfortable, but settling can become expensive. Before we close, what is the final word you want to leave with the listener?
Tonya, I want to say this to the person who is tired. I know the weight can be heavy. I know it can be painful to keep believing when there is no visible movement. I know it can be frustrating to carry a standard when compromise looks easier, faster, and more convenient. But please hear me. Do not let delay talk you into abandoning what wisdom already taught you, or what wisdom is teaching you. Do not let loneliness choose for you. Do not let fear, comparison, pressure, or exhaustion to choose for you. Rest if you need to rest. Cry if you need to cry. Pray if you need to pray. Pray because prayer is so important. Get counsel if you need counsel. Adjust whatever needs to be adjusted. Take responsibility where responsibility is required. But do not settle just because the promise is taking longer than you expected. Because the shortcut may look cheaper, but it can charge interest later. Take the action seriously. Identify the place where delay is tempting you to lower the standard. Write down what settling would cost. Then choose the next wise step without betraying what God has been building in you. The delay may be uncomfortable, but settling can become expensive. Thank you for listening to the She Thinks She's Cute podcast. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who is waiting. someone who has become weary or they're trying their best not to settle. And take a moment to download the complimentary listener guide for this episode at our website, shethinksshecute.com. This is Denise Williams. You have been listening to the She Thinks She's Cute podcast. Until the next time, keep moving with wisdom, keep telling yourself the truth, and do not let the pressure of delay make you choose beneath what is right.
She Thinks She's Cute stage production is now available for booking. Looking for a powerful stage experience for your women's conference, church event, university, corporate gathering, community event, or performing arts venue? She Thinks She's Cute is a compelling live production that sparks conversation, challenges assumptions, and reminds audiences of the power of empathy, healing, and unity among women. Bring this unforgettable production to your stage. Visit shethinkshecute.com and click the booking button for more details. She Thinks She's Cute stage production. Assumption is not always truth.
Some seasons do not unfold the way you planned. When my stage production had to be postponed, I found myself in a season I did not choose and could not push past. What felt like interruption revealed itself as instruction. What felt like delay became protection. What felt like stillness proved to be strategic. And in the middle of that season, I wrote a book, Strategic Stillness, When Pausing Protects the Promise. This is not a book about waiting passively. It's about recognizing when restraint is wisdom. It is for leaders, creatives, and vision holders who have felt the pressure to keep going, even when the body, their spirit, or their circumstances were asking for a pause. If progress has slowed, plans have shifted, or movement feels blocked, this book was written for you.
Available now on Amazon, search Strategic Stillness by Denise Williams. Start your next season with Strategic Stillness.
Thank you for listening to the She Thinks She's Cute podcast. If this found you at the right moment, hold it, sit with it, share it, let it work. A space for thought-provoking stories and conversations. Created and hosted by Denise Williams. The story continues. We'll meet again in the next conversation. Until then, stay cute, stay aware, stay aligned, and stay becoming. She Thinks She's Cute. Original stories. Intentional impact.
Visit shethinkshecute.com. She Thinks She's Cute is a founder-led creative brand developing original, narrative-driven works across stage, experiential formats, and future screen projects, centered on perception, identity, and the unspoken dynamics that shape how we see ourselves and one another. Original stories, intentional impact, shethinkshecute.com.
She thinks she's cute, yes, she is. Every step she takes, she walks in power. She thinks she's cute, and she is. She thinks she's cute, and she is, yes.
Available now on Amazon, search Strategic Stillness by Denise Williams. Start your next season with Strategic Stillness.